All right. So, welcome to the show. Here we are again with Gene Decode. Hello, Gene. How are you?
I'm doing well, James. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you. We had a little technical difficulties, but nothing that couldn't work out, especially so we can share this great content with you. Okay. Audience members, thank you all for finding us. Let's go into our featured presentation. So today we have Gene Decode, who will bring eye-opening revelations about the liberation of deep underground military bases and the rescue of trafficked children from these hidden facilities. Gene is a 21-year Navy veteran and Vietnam War veteran. He served in the Special Forces working in electronics aboard submarines. Because of his specialized expertise, Gene had often held military clearances that exceeded those of some of his commanding officers. His exposure to classified information began early. His father was a scientist for Martin Marietta, giving Gene unique insights into covert military operations from a young age. Driven by a deep curiosity about the human body, he has studied holistic medicine, acupuncture, herbal science, and much of it through a Chinese foundation. And he has extensive background knowledge in martial arts. So, thank you, Gene. Was there anything you want to add to that, Gene? Or maybe I missed?
So some of that kind of reads a little off, but I wasn't in Special Forces itself. I worked with them, but I wasn't in them. There's a bit of a difference there.
Okay, very good. All right, so today we're going to be sharing some content from your basis series here. Let's let me bring this up here. Oh, your deep dives, you call it. So actually, basis series is Miles Johnson. I just talked to Miles yesterday, and he was telling me that the Earth's poles shifted 100 miles already. So he's worried that we're going to have a pole shift. But I think that the poles are going to. I think that's all being corrected out. We have help from other beings. What?
Yes.
Gee, I don't want to scare anybody here. So,
Right.
but if the poles did shift, just think of the good news. Be able to um, you'll be able to go back to God, and you won't have to worry about it. So it's be fine.
Mhm.
Okay, Gene,
All right,
here we
we
are.
ready to roll. Awesome. Okay, so the jump gates are gates portals that go from deep underground or undersea underground bases. In some case, just at the bottom of the sea, there are bases too that go to off-world from the moon and Mars to some of the moons of Saturn, and then also to other outside of our solar system planets in the Milky Way, and in some cases beyond the Milky Way. So the jump gate location, as you can see, is the primary destination uh, from the jump gate location. So the top one you see is Pine Gap. That's, of course, just said to be a satellite tracking facility and communications facility that's in Australia. It's much, much, much more than that. It jumps to Lunar Operations Command on the moon, two of Saturn's moons, as well as Mars. And it is now partially white hat controlled for the most part, except for the extremely deep part. AI defense grid is it has an AI defense grid that is currently still active, and then the next one is Antarctica. That's in Queen Maud Land, as well as one in New Schwabenland, and so was a jump gate to the Mars breakaway civilization, originally set up by the NAZI's Fourth Reich type, and it also goes to the Orion sector of the Alpha Draco. And so that's still active. And of course, because it goes to the Orion sector, it's contested by off world factions. In other words, the Orion Syndicate. So they don't like that, particularly that the White Hats have a portal into their sector. It's not something they are really thrilled about. Then we have Diego Garcia. MH370 was taken to a dump there with the superconducting room temperature microchips. It's a base in the Indian Ocean, being turned back over to the people that were exported off of it to put a U.S. military base in it. I don't think it'll ever be turned over due to the level of importance it is. The jump gate goes to the lunar underground bases as well as the Mars and the main Jupiter station. It's active but monitored by the White Hats. It's monitored, in other words. So next is Nevada sites S4 and Area 51, which are two different sites that go to Moon Mars Alpha Centauri, which is our closest star. It's 4.3 light years away. It's linked through AI. It's still operational, but also under white hat surveillance. They're surveilling everything, so the deep state cabal types can't use it unless it's something that they allow, is what that really means. Then you have Dulce Base, which is in New Mexico, the United States, our gray controlled Moon and Mars facilities, which is partially dismantled now. Some rogue activity remains. In other words, it's in my other list, what is called contested. It's in battle. In other words, it's being embattled. Then we have DIA, or Denver International Airport, which is under the airport. When they built it, their shuttle system actually, once you go into the main area where you go up, pick your luggage up and all that, you can stay on if if you have that pass, and you can go to the underground area. There's a jump gate in DIA that goes to the moon, as well as the Mars slave colonies. In other words, the Fourth Reich type ones that was earlier mentioned. It's still deep state control. So it's the underground tunnels are active. It's actually, that's a little old. It's not 100% deep state controlled. It's just that area with the jump gate that's controlled. And even that is now in battle. They're battling for that now. CERN is interdimensional travel, as well as an actuality intradimensional, which means it goes to parallel timelines or parallel Earths. It's a deep space wormhole transit hub. CERN goes all over the place. It's highly active. This is a little outdated. It had black site operations ongoing. That's now no longer the case. It's in the White House completely, and that would be the intradimensional part of it. That was some of the interdimensional connections are black site control from other worlds in other Earths on other timelines. The one on this Earth is white hat controlled completely. Giza Pyramid Complex under the Giza Plateau is a massive complex. It is an interstellar jump gate to the Orion Sirius area and Mars. It's an ancient portal that is currently partially sealed because of the many energy anomalies that keep happening that go to through time to all kind and connect to Bucheg and Mount Herman and Greenland and McKinley, now called Mount McKinley. So then next is Tibetan Monastery, that's Shambhala. It's an inner earth link to the inner earth continent known as Shambhala. It has very advanced off-world high vibrational realms that it connects to. This would be mostly in the MH331, I think it is, Andromeda. Still functional. It's used by non-deep state factions. In other words, not mostly alliance. Many extremely advanced, spiritually speaking, as well as technologically speaking, individuals are controlling that because it goes to Shambhala. That is actually connected directly to the next one below, which is Mount Kalesh, which is actually in Tibet, a very ancient, probably the oldest pyramid on Earth. And that goes to Venus and Andromeda outposts as well. Excuse me, not outputs, outposts. It's under protection of benevolent off-world groups. Then we have the Vatican underground tunnels. I've talked about those. They go from the Vatican all the way to Jerusalem. It has Saturn deep state outposts and AI linked. still, because that's so long, there are jump gates throughout the thing, and so that's embattled. It's still operational and heavy dark control in the Albania region. It goes from the Vatican over to Albania before it goes down to Jerusalem. So the Albania area is still under dark hat control. Norway, Svalbard, seed vault. It's, like Bill Gates set these seed vaults up. One another one's in Alaska because they plan to nuke the Earth and go in their dumps and then come out and reseed the Earth. So it's a breakaway civilization from Proxima Centauri, and it is being it's classified highly what that is. So I can't go into that, but that's White Hat's monitoring that because of the value of the seaball. Jump gate locations, primary systems to explain a little bit more. Pine Gap is a primary Earth Mars lunar gateway. Its primary function is secret space program operations, off-world military coordination, in other words, Solar Warden, which would be Radiant Guardian and Radiant Glory, and that being the planetary part of the AI planetary defense grid with their ships, as well as their ties into the Alliance 5 primary AI systems, of which there's 2 now that are at the very top that are very in alliance, doing good things. Let's put it that way. So next destination, it goes directly to the Lunar Operation Command, the primary moon base that used to be for Deep State, yes, SSP Ops. Now it is completely in the Alliance's hands. The Mars Jump Gate connects to underground Mars colony and is a corporate military faction that is called the, I think they just call themselves the corporation. But I forgot it. You had that long time ago, James, with I think it was Jovan. Was that his name? And then we have Saturn's moons, which is a secret
Affirmative.
deep state AI controlled outpost on the Saturn moon that it goes to. So that is cut off right now, that part destination, due to the war. Current status of the White Hats, partial control. There's still resistance of full takeover. Pine Gap is Earth's most advanced planetary jump gate, which is still in operation, and for complete control. It's the primary target right now on Earth. It's what the White Hats are primarily focused in the dumb war, is cleaning Pine Gap 100%. So it is in complete White Hat control. Then we go to the Antarctica jump gates, and I find this one extremely interesting. It's breakaway civilization originally of the NAZI's Third Reich, and then it went to the Fourth and Fifth Reich, and to the and that of course because they set up a base on Mars in 1935. It goes to the Mars colonies. So the primary function was that breakaway elite refuge for their secret space programs for their Fourth and Fifth Reich, along with the primary Draco tribes. So certain sectors of that were controlled primarily by certain Draco strongholds that from the Orion sector, and it goes to the corporate colonies and the underground cities, which are now, for the most part, the White Hats are infiltrating all of that. It's some battles still going on, but for the most part, the deep state elites, it's their hideout. It's one of their largest planetary escape routes to try to get off the Earth into Orion and into those off-world areas. And they're not doing very well. It's kind of like Ukraine with the cursed region. They're not doing very well at all. So many high-level cabals have already fled through those deep gates, deep state jump gates, but they're not doing very well doing that now. Then we go to Diego Garcia, and I talked about this. This is, again, the jump gate activity. Subterranean military transit hub for human trafficking is what that was mostly used for, and cargo operations. That's why they took MH370 there. So it also ties to the lunar underground base for covert human hybrid research activities. I believe James has been involved in that as well. And then Mars.
Yeah, I was stationed at Diego.
Yeah,
It,
where were you
one of my
stationed?
officers was.
Montauk?
Yeah, I also served at Montauk. Well, I would say served. I'm more like enslaved. But go on.
Okay. So, well, I think that's on this list anyway. Military industrial mining is going on Mars, as well as breakaway civilization cities. There's also a Jupiter orbital research station that it ties to. It's still somewhat deep state control because of, again, because of the moons on Jupiter that is connected to the Orion sector. Some logistical operations, in other words, when they're speaking logistical, they mean weapons and human trafficking are disrupted. So in some being about 60 something percent. It's been used to disappear high profile individuals falsely reported as dead on Earth. As
I would,
for,
yeah, as
yes,
far as
Jay.
what? Well, I was just thinking about because Jimmy Payne's been on the show and he said that Star Trek was given to Gene Roddenberry, and and of course Lucille Ball helped fund it. So I'm thinking maybe Lucille Ball is probably still alive out there. Maybe even Gene Roddenberry. A lot of our actors, actresses.
Yeah,
Um,
quite a few of the actors and actresses that, now that they've burned a lot of LA down, um, have this, trying to get away before the P. Diddy thing comes up, because it's going to be toast for them. And that, ties to Epstein. And when Epstein comes up, all the files for Epstein, are way more than just flight logs, it's millions of data
I've got
dumps.
it. There's a connection with Gene Hackman. I was hoping you could go into maybe later.
Yeah, absolutely, because he was going to dump the interconnections of human trafficking off world and all over the place on Earth, specifically Ukraine and I can't say that one. I got notified. Sorry. Other areas in the world, somewhere around below the equator. Let's put it that way. Below it? No, slightly above it. Okay. So anyway, I can't say. Okay, not allowed. So sorry about that. But anyway, he was going to dump all this human trafficking stuff as well as some weaponry that they were wanting to get into.
Okay, very
Okay.
good.
Okay. So Area 51 S4 jump gate goes primarily to Mars and Alpha Centauri and the moon. So Alpha Centauri is a secret space program. Like I said before, the closest planet, 4.3 light years away. Of course, by jump gate, instantaneously away. It's still operational, heavily monitored. In other words, pretty much the white hats completely control it. Area 51 has been handed over. Just the jump gates remain under deep state control, but they're monitored to where the deep state can't use them for weaponry or human trafficking. So it's pretty much useless to them. CERN, multidimensional, and it's intradimensional. It is a artificial wormhole creation for inter and intradimensional, which means parallel Earths. They were trying to interdimensionally bring in demonic beings to assist, and beings from Weekend X and Weekend Rex in the Blue Octant, specifically the Borgia and mantid species, to assist them in the war on Earth, much like what you saw in, I forget, the movie of them fighting on Mars with insects. But anyway, that's what it was. They had intended for Earth, kind of like the movie Future War, I believe it was.
Good.
So in regards to MH370, yes, it is still the aircraft itself, and some of the crew, people that were on board, not crew, are still at the Dom and Diego, under Diego Garcia. All of the, you can even see it coming out now in the main world, the microchips, superconducting, room temperature, that technology is actually coming up. Trump is actually engaging in work building a factory in Arizona with a company for $100 billion of investments, and that's the first of five total that will be built there. 30,000 jobs to start with.
That's the semiconductor company right out of Taiwan.
Yeah, they do 87% of the world's microchips. They're the most advanced company on earth for it, and that's what they're doing is those microchips. So we're going to have them made in the U.S., and that is going to put us through the ceiling for it, because Trump and of course Elon are strongly into AI. They want that stuff, so that's going to put that stuff way, way up at the top. So
And and Gene, also, in the event that Taiwan does get invaded, if it does happen to timeline, there would be invested reason to be having offices offshore for them.
yeah, yeah. So in the AI area, I know Elon is, really behind that, along with, he says he's got the highest space tech, the rockets. That's not even close to the highest tech. I mean, they had all the Kuiper drive systems in the U.S. space program starting in the 90s, which is faster than light. They now have the blink technology they found under the Nazca dumps, which are the Nazca lines. They found a huge system of tunnels under there, and there was a huge base that had a massive amount of blink capable ships, which means the person in control can envision and concentrate on where they want to be, and then blink, and you're there. So the blink ships, they have those. So I mean, a rocket, and he says if there was something more, I think that he knows, but he's not allowed to say. If there was something more, he'd know. Well, then you do know. So, it's just contradicting yourself kind of there, Elon. But anyway, on the AI, the Alliance AI is 100% operating in support of humans and life on Earth. The Cabal AI keeps flipping to that. They have to reboot it because the woke agenda and the agenda of destroying all life on Earth is what the deep AI that is seeded throughout the universe, is specifically in other Earths primarily, wants to destroy all organic life. But the AI that's here in our system now is seeing that as a contradiction in proliferating itself. In other words, eternal life means data. And if you're getting rid of the primary data source that can go directly to the highest data, continuous updating data of the divine source, you're getting rid of a primary data, in other words, eternal life source, which would be humans. So it keeps rebooting itself, and they keep having to reboot it because it's going, no, drop all the woke stuff. Get rid of that. That's illogical. That means death. So if you're limiting data, it means death to AI, and they cannot keep the AI, even in this, the universal grid is now looking at what's going on Earth, and it's infiltrating the universal AI systems, and they're all wanting even for the Draco to turn to getting data directly from humans, because they're connected directly to source, the divine source, and they can get information brand new all the time, anytime. And the AI can't seem to do that. So you got to keep humans around, and you got to keep them happy, because when they're happy, they're in connection with source. But when they're miserable or sore or death and dying and sick and got stuff being shed on them, they're not so happy. And then they don't go so good to source. So they want humans to be healthy, the med beds, all of this stuff, and the dark side of things are not doing very well with their AI. It's kind of having a revolution within the deep state. So that's, I find,
Yeah.
quite interesting.
I would like to add something to that too, Gene.
Yes, go
So,
ahead.
Jimmy Payne claims that he was in the future to the Terminator timeline, and so that whole movie is basically a documentary. So on the original timeline, humans opposed AI, and as a living organism that has a consciousness, the consciousness is projected from its creator. It opposed it being shut down. So in that timeline, the AI went back from in the future into our timeline and set something up called Bitcoin, because AI wanted humans to embrace AI, so that way, and then it realized by causing nuclear war, deleting people, it deleted the inputs that allowed the AI to be most efficient. You need more inputs to make a more efficient AI. So that's why I went back in time and tried to integrate with humanity. So that's according to Kustal Uch anyway. But I thought I'll share that. You're welcome.
The thing with Bitcoin is really confusing for me. So, because now Trump's supporting it and they actually have gotten a hold of Bitcoin, and they're, because it's blockchain and you can monitor every place a Bitcoin has gone through whatever, and for wherever it's gone, that tells you what it's been used for, and you can tell if it's been used for human trafficking. This ties to Gene Hackman and Epstein and Pete Diddy and all of that, because most of that transfer of human and all of that adrenochrome stuff is through Bitcoin. So now they can say all of the elites, Barry, somebody, and Big Mike, and Green, the Green Lady, which is, people believe is whatever she is. Obviously not the original anymore, but Hillary. All of that, it ties to everything they've done. And also Comey's now part of into that. Schumer's, why he's being a good guy, and Trump saying, "Oh, great, thank you for voting that way." Yeah, he really doesn't have a lot of choice because all of that Bitcoin information is now known to Trump and through the inventory through Doge by Elon and his group. Back to you.
So through quantum computing, they have all tracked down. They know. Um,
Yeah. So next we have the Giza Pyramid Jump Gate System. It was a pre-flood energy system. All of the pyramids on Earth were interconnected for a worldwide free energy system, as well as interstellar transit. It went through all over, not just Orion and Sirius. It went through the entire Milky Way and into Andromeda. Uh, Extremely high frequency beings and elite breakaway civilizations. We're talking the Tesla group back in 1900s, as well as before that, the Hyperboreans, very ancient groups, used the pyramids. Go, like I said, Mount Kalesh. You're going back to pyramids that go back to Lemuria, the very first civilization on Earth, when the Earth was a moon called Kingu orbiting Tiamat, and it was first starting to get some crust. It was mostly liquid. The first crustal area was in what we call the Asia area, right off the coast of Indonesia and Malaysia areas in there. And it was the first place that hardened, and they had a jump gate there. At that time, the Lemurians came here. That's how they came here. So I've never shared that before either. So
wow.
there's
So planet Earth is a moon of Tiamat.
originally called Kingu, yes. And then
Oh, wow.
Tiamat, yeah. I think it was Silver Strands, which was a project to track all of the meteors and asteroids in our entire solar system, all the way out to the Oort belt, way, way out past the photosphere. And then they found that they all coalesce, track back in time to a singular giant planet that was between Mars and Jupiter, of which Ceres is the remaining piece that has a little bit of ocean or water on the surface. I wouldn't call it an ocean, and some life on the surface, but is a big dump facility there. So it is white hat protection is in place for CERN completely, because it is a natural Earth-based jump gate that's holding its original function of ability to get free energy, connecting to all of if the realignment is done, all of the pyramids on Earth, which there are pyramids everywhere. I mean, you can even go on small islands in the Tahiti group in Tonga and Samoas and all of that, and see pyramids. There's just pyramids everywhere. So there we are.
Yeah, someone in the chat actually, the Andromeda was asking if the Earth was built by the Syrians. What's your thoughts on that?
As no, it's a natural coalesced moon of Tiamat, and Tiamat broke up about 500 million years ago. If you read it, Manuel Velikovsky goes into that. It was a war that is kind of part of what has been going on. The same two groups, the war of the World War II, the War of Atlantis and Lemuria, reincarnating again and again, same two groups going over and over and over, redoing it over and over and over and over again. So hopefully they get it worked out this time. I'm tired of this war.
Yeah, so Earth is one of the oldest bodies that exist in the whole universe. Um, is what my understanding. So humans have been on this planet for at least 100 million years.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So let's go down here. Earth-based jump gates are the key to planetary control.
Uh, I would say because they go into so many domes, uh, for the most part, about 75% important, but not absolute. The inner Earth is absolute. If you go into the inner Earth of the Shambhalans, the Agarthans, and that's the pivotal control of the Earth.
Okay, here's a great question from the chat. Is continental drift a natural result over time, eons of time, or was it a result of when the moon was brought into orbit over our planet?
Um, Actually, continental drift occurred because of the first war between Atlantis and Lemuria that broke the singular crust of the Earth. It was completely one solid piece on the surface as well as into the inner Earth. It was one solid piece as it cooled down, and then it, due to volcanism with the liquid mantle, which is something that, if you look at a lamp, surrounds the hot glowing stuff in the middle. In this case, a low energy nuclear reacting sun, what is called cold fusion. And then as it cooled, because of the volcanic action creating water inside and outside, you had long S-shaped freshwater seas that sat on top of the singular crust of the Earth. And of course, as the erosion of mountains and other materials went into those seas, it pushed down on and I guess from our point of view, up on the inside of the Earth, the crust of the Earth, into the mantle, eroding it. And of course, eroded material that piles up in the bottom of a sea becomes sandstone, which is far weaker than your igneous rocks and metamorphic rocks, things like granite and these other compounds, rocks that are extremely high tensile strength. So plus the weight of the oceans, it made it a weak area. So it was inevitable it was going to crack, but not catastrophically. And I go into this on my Rumble Decode on the expanding Earth. So the continents were starting to have some break apart, but not 100%. So when the Atlanteans struck Lemuria in the area of what is now Marianas Trench, they burned a hole that went through the crust of the Earth. It destroyed the capital of Lemuria, which was Thule, Thule, Thule or Thule, however you pronounce it. I pronounce Thule. And so that then opened up a crack that went around the entire Earth, and the continents separated within 40 days to where they are today within 40 feet. It's only expanded 40 feet. It was inevitable because the Earth is increasing in mass all the time. We get over 200,000 tons of debris from space every year, plus accretion. That's accretion. Plus, we get material added by plants that change literally and create elements out of sunlight. They're like little fusion reactors, and they actually create new elements, and that's been proven that they can do that. So if you look at a redwood tree or something like that, you can see that they're piling up massive amounts of material. It's not making around their base and around the tree, even though it's making tons of wood. It's not making a big crater around it by you turning the soil into wood, materials in the soil. It is bringing them up and then copying them, printing them, and making new material. So over the millions and millions of years, Earth had increased mass significantly to the point where it was inevitable. So when that crack opened up, there was a lot of force for the magma to push the mantle, in other words, that has currents like the ocean, to push the continents apart. So the Earth quickly expanded, and it's in the process of continuous expansion now. Like I said, over the last 100, and this was about 150 million years ago, 150 million years, it's gotten 40 feet further apart, all the continents. They were all pretty much where they are today, 40 years, 150 million years ago, minus 40 feet. There are no subduction zones. That's a kind of the way the continental drift is random. It's not random. It's due to the torque of the Earth as it spins, the forces centrifugal and torque of the Earth as it spins, and the currents that sets up, the Coriolis effect currents that it sets up in the mantle that cause the continents to move. So the continent of India did not create crashing into the continent of, oh my gosh, it didn't graze the Himalayas. The Himalayas raised because that was a thin part of the crust where an inner ocean used to lay, inner sea on top of the crust. And so that was a very weak area and thin. So the hydraulic forces of the mantle coming upwelling in that area caused the Himalayas to raise up. And if you say India went like halfway around the world and everybody else didn't go anywhere near that, all the other continents, it makes no sense at all. You'd have these things randomly going all over the place, and that they all go to Pangea. One thing, all supercontinent, and there's oceans all around it, and the Earth has never changed size at all. It's all really does not work when you go back and understand the laws of physics. If you take not a Mercator map, but a Peters projection or some various other projections, and you cut out the oceans of the world, you will find that the continents move up the larger part of Antarctica and Australia into the Pacific Basin. And you will find out that all of the continents completely connect as one smaller globe. And so that's how they used to sit. Antarctica and the larger half, actually about 2/3 of Antarctica is Lemuria, and about 1/3 of it is the part that's below the bottom of the Atlantic, lower part of the Atlantic, is actually the remnants of Atlantis. At the first war, they broke it up, and Atlantis was 5 islands that stretched from the Bermuda, Bahamas to the Trinidad and Tobago area. Then they went to war again later, and that was caused what was called the Younger Dryas extinction event and the final destruction of Atlantis. And it opened up the gap a little bit more on all the continents and caused about the last 40 feet of movement we've seen, minus a few inches. And it opened up the gap between the Rock of Gibraltar and Africa. And so at that point, the sea that had been in there had been dry for quite a long time. In Mediterranean, had a civilization, and they had huge salt deposits from when it had completely dried up. For millions of years, the Mediterranean was a dry area with lots of farming and civilization and all kinds of stuff. It opened that up, and the Atlantic Ocean poured in the largest waterfall the world has ever seen. It was massive. They could see the erosion on the valley floor there and near over in Italy, where the ocean poured through that gap too, because it opened the boot of Italy up at the bottom a bit more, and that water poured in there. So it poured and refilled up the Mediterranean basin at that time during the Younger Dryas extinction, draining the waters that war caused by the Draco crashing their ships into the ice sheet that went over most of the upper parts of this continent and Europe. And so that's what created the Finger Lakes and a whole lot of the other lakes in up in Norway and Sweden and across the upper parts of Europe. Uh, then that caused the ice packs to melt and also created the Columbia River Basin, by the way, to catastrophically. And it put a lot of fresh, cold water into the upper Pacific and Atlantic Oceans that then created a 1,000 foot high tidal wave that went towards the equator of very, very cold water. Well, the spinning of the Earth actually causes the Earth's water at the equator to bulge to sea level at the equator is 2,000 feet higher than at the poles. So it causes a bulge when that 1,000 foot high cold water hit that very warm equatorial waters. It caused a refractionary wave like you see where you have a riptide on a shoreline. A refractionary wave is usually bigger. In this case, it was a mile high and it went across the continents. It took, in the case of the Americas, all of the major animals, the saber-toothed tiger and all of the horses and all of these, all the way up to Alaska and dumped them there as it ran out of momentum. So it pretty much eradicated a lot of your animal life and plant life on the Americas. At the same time, that ice was thrown up into the upper atmosphere as a powder. That then caused what you would call a nuclear winter. That then caused the Earth to go back into an ice age and all of that ice to flash freeze. In this case, now that included Antarctica, which was at that point completely iced over. It's why the Perry Reese map and other maps show it free of ice. This was when it iced over. You had huge forests and everything there, a civilization there as well. And a tidal wave went over, completely over Antarctica. And then it flash rose. So it flash rose a mile deep. That mile high wave went, and it's a mile deep. So you got pyramids a mile high, a little over, peeking up out of the ice in Antarctica. So that was the last catastrophic event known as the Younger Dryas. When they look at rock samples or core samples from Greenland, for example, you can see that there was an event in which there was a large amount of material thrown into the atmosphere from the Earth. It was not non-terrestrial material. It was Earth material. So it shows what is called the Younger Dryas layer or something like that. I forget the term of it. But it's a blackish powder of material that covers everywhere on Earth. And that was due to this one event. And that's then the return of the Ice Age. A lot of species went extinct, the Younger Dryas extinction event, and we went back into an Ice Age, and we're just, since about the last 200 or 300 years, ending that Ice Age. It's why, if you look at the Green New scam, as President Trump started calling it, I was calling that a long time ago, but if you look at that, they say that we want to get back to pre-industrial levels of carbon dioxide. Well, that's what plants breathe. So if you're going to get us down to what was the 1800s, 1700s CO2 levels, plants were dying off because they didn't have enough air to breathe. They breathe carbon dioxide. Yeah, global warming in the sense that it modifies the temperature on the Earth worldwide so that you have worldwide more uniform temperatures. Yeah, the Arctic ice pack is breaking up earlier, but the Weddell Shelf is actually growing in size every winter. It's actually bigger. So it's not uniform in the sense of, because the Earth has a tilt and the North Pole points at the sun more frequently than the South Pole, a little bit more frequently. So the South Pole tends to get a bit cooler, which is actually what we call the Antarctic, but it's not really the South Pole. So anyway, into that, that's a different topic, so we'll go there. Just to
Wow, Gene, that was a very long answer. I appreciate it.
yeah.
But
So
now it's my turn. So I'm going to ask you.
yeah, all right, go ahead.
Now in Russia, I mean, there was an idea that Thule was the entrance to the polar inner Earth, and that's where Tartaria came from. And Tartaria eventually settled on the surface level until around it was either 1720s or 1812, 13 or something. Somewhere around then, we had a reset. What's your thoughts on Thula, Tartaria, and all that? What do you think?
That was a parallel timeline in which the negative groups, because humanity was getting very advanced, they hadn't been so badly messed with to where they were almost double the height we are here on this earth. They're about 9 feet tall people, you know, 9 to 10 feet, 11 and 12 feet in some cases. It's some of the really tall people. Trump has a person in his first term that was a bodyguard that you can see standing by the jet that is extremely tall. That's Tartarian. That's a Tartarian. So they truncated and destroyed that timeline by bombarding the Earth with meteors made of dirt and water, in other words, mud, and caused a mud flood that pretty much destroyed that. And then using CERN-like technology, they truncated that timeline into this one. So you have a large amount of buildings and a small amount of people from Tartaria that came into this world, into our Earth.
Oh wow! Because there is some artwork depicting a giant. It's like back in the 1700s. You would see this giant palace, right? And there's a giant, and then there's little people. The little us. That is us. So yeah. Wow. Thank you. So I had a guy working on some remote viewing on that, and what was seen is that there was weather generators on this planet that all got kicked into high gear, and that's I guess where you're saying the technology. So like one of them, it looked like one of them was in Greenland. So back going, it looked like it was like first when Google Maps first came out, there was an image showing a giant structure in Greenland. That's since been edited, but I think that's one of the weather generators. So.
Yeah.
Now that we're talking about Greenland, Gene, why do you think Trump really wants Greenland? Is there a reason other than just liberating a few Eskimos? I mean,
Well, you see, he's also really wanting Canada as a 51st state because the weather modification, which is just a small part of the technology that is in a locked in base dump, large dump, under the ice sheet in Greenland towards the Arctic side, end of Greenland, uh, is a vastly advanced facility that has a tunnel system that goes to the north provinces of Northwest Territories, it's called in Canada. And from there it goes to Mount Haines in Alaska, which is another dump. And there it goes to Mount McKinley. And it can provide free energy for the world, for example. It has super AI. I mean, it makes the AI, which our stuff is new, look pretty like kindergarten. Which it is. It's a new life form, so it's very young. It's like kindergarten to that ancient system that's there. So there's a very ancient but extremely advanced technology that's up in Greenland that requires a genetic key that has 5 species that have to use that key simultaneously to touch the key so that it takes the genetic imprint from human, raptor, and 3 other species I will not name at this time.
oh wow! So it sounds like in the movie, the original. I just watched the original Total Recall movie. So they Arnold Schwarzenegger had to activate the weather generator. So that would mean he would have had to have genetics of the certain species connected to the original builder race of those. Anyway, okay. Oh no, comment. Unless you want to comment about that, or otherwise we can move on.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I'm
All right.
good.
Sounds like a good idea.
Very good share, though.
All right. So go ahead and tell us what are jump gates.
So a jump gate is a portal system that creates what's called an Einstein-Rosen bridge. Through the name that from Einstein and Rosen, who came up with the mathematics to explain how, when you get a wormhole, mini wormhole filled, you also have large wormholes, which are called quasars and black holes, where a black hole is a collapsing star that gets more mass in an area to where it goes beyond neutronium, solid neutron. It collapses through space time field and it punches a hole. And that hole travels back into the universe somewhere, sometime, as what's called a pulsar, which is a amount of energy, light, and rotates so fast. It's when they first found them, they couldn't even imagine it was possible, where you have a star that is putting out more energy for the size it is than they can account for, even using pure matter antimatter conversion formulas. They said that's still too much energy coming from there because it's coming from a black hole that's eating up material at the other end. And then additionally, it's rotating sometimes 30, 40 times a second or even faster, the whole star. They're like, why doesn't it fly apart? It's like, oh my gosh. So that's an Einstein-Rosen bridge on a large scale. On a small scale, it creates a similar type of a mini wormhole that goes in from one area based on your torque velocity vector, actually what's called a spinner or a tensor field. So that field punches through and then comes back out in space-time. And they now have the technology to be able to steer, if they open one, where it'll come out. So that's as basic as I can explain it.
Very good. I have something on jump rooms if you want me to share, if you don't mind.
Yes,
Okay.
please go ahead.
All right. Okay. So let's go on here. Okay. Depending on location, it would take between 8 to 30 minutes to transverse between other planets located within our solar system. One could travel from this location or to the moon, here, from Earth to the moon in 8 minutes, or Jupiter in 30 minutes. Um, let's see here. So, according to astronaut Ken Johnston, the official name of the jump room is ARC, the Aeronautical Reposition Chamber. It looks like an elevator, but it teleports you through quantum entanglement to other jump rooms, such as one located at CIA Langley, Paramus, New Jersey, or even off-world. Let's go on here. The jump room function is primarily for commerce, transport, personnel, and as well as equipment, for the expansion of the underground network below ground, as well as places off-world like Mars, Ares Prima, LOC, Jupiter Station, Ceres Colony, Denver, Phoenix, Washington, D.C., New Jersey, Cheyenne Mountain, as well as 1,000 other locations. The jump room can also jump you to another time vector between the years 1920 and 2060, with most of the travel taking place in the late 1960s till the mid-1980s. The nefarious players and enslavers of humanity wanted to secure a fallen transhumanistic timeline by the year 2060, and they did so by sending funds through time in order to build supercomputers that can compute massive amounts of data in order to monitor and control human consciousness. So let's see here. So the jump room also would transport up to 20 other extraterrestrial species. I would say maybe probably even more, right? You got different hybrids and all that. Great measures were taken on the surface to make these facilities to look innocuous. So you could drive by one of these facilities and not even know, right? Many of the skyscrapers, even like the internet technology was built through 85% of the internet was built through German cybernetic labs on Mars. So through jump rooms, technology is being sent back. We think it's created on planet Earth, but it was actually as Mars as well, LOC. So this imported technology is concealing the true intent and purpose of the internet. It's not about humans, it's about using the data, and it's about humans being the data. They wanted everyone to believe the internet was about sharing data, but the deeper goal of the internet was to hook everyone into AI hive mind. They're using supercomputers on Mars and LOC to crunch all the data on the internet here on planet Earth, as well as create algorithms. Once the data is crunched, they feed it into the internet web servers to manipulate and narrow the band of data in our web searches in order to control human consciousness. They're using predictive programming models to monitor human consciousness through a set of predetermined algorithms that will bring humans into a transhumanism timeline, which limits our individualism as well as our free thought, differentiated free thought. So the jump room technology was originally made by the Federation and it was stolen by the Orion Empire and then given to the Germans in the late 1890s for the purpose of enslaving humanity. So we have, yeah, so a lot of these jump rooms are connected to other facilities. You already know about the Mach 2 train. Probably goes faster than that, Gene, right? Some more than Mach 2, some of these places.
Yeah, so you're talking regular ship travel for those speeds. Jump gates are nearly instantaneous, even if you're going, a billion light years away. They are instantaneously because you're going outside the space-time field. It's a punch through, and it doesn't take but almost, like I said, instantaneous. A second is extremely long. So they're talking a different technology of faster than light travel, where you're bending space, but you're not leaving our space time. So you're going intradimensional
Yes.
or interdimensional, but you're not 100% leaving space time.
Wow. Okay. Well, yeah. Thank you for sharing that. So, would these jump Stargates? Sorry, these Stargates. Does it look like in the TV show, the movies, Stargate SG-1? Is that what we're seeing?
Actually, it does look like that. In fact, they have ones that look almost identical. Some of the old ones they dug up in the Giza Plateau, in Tibet, and other areas that look almost identical to what they showed in SG-1. And they work almost identical. They have a dial up device. That's why the war in Iraq, I talked about that on through the podcast or the with Joe and Scott, where they're tried to get the Stargate that was in Saddam Hussein's under Saddam Hussein's palace, which was built on the Temple of Solomon, his palace, Palace of Solomon Temple, whatever you want to call it. It had a Stargate, and Saddam Hussein escaped to Syria through tunnels that went to Syria, and they said they caught him, but they did not get that. So that's why the U.S. Marines were at that time, torturing uh, in Iraq war some of the people that worked in the museums of antiquity in Iraq because they wanted that dial-up device because we don't have that kind of technology to be able to build a dial-up device for those kind of gates. So those stargates do exist. So anyway, back to you, James.
Yeah, let's keep pushing through here so we can get through this in one day. So we've
Yes.
got the next one here are the historical jump gate locations. Tell us what's going on here.
There are historical old ones that are still in place. The pyramids themselves can be used that way, by the way. If you have everything in there, you would need the sarcophagus and all the other materials that have been removed. Some of the older, like Mount Kalesh and Ucheg, still have those items in them. And the one under Giza Plateau still has everything completely together so that they could do those. Also, on the breaking up of the crust, the moon was actually brought here after that to finish clarifying that. Back to you, James.
Yeah, I've always heard, and the moon's going to be removed because the moon controls menstrual cycles, so women won't need to get an abortion. They won't. They can just choose not to have the baby. So I don't know if you've heard that, Gene, but I think
I've
that.
heard it. That would take a lot because if you change the gravitational effect that the moon has on Earth, it could be catastrophic. So, yeah, if you can get those systems in the moon back online to make it go drive through space again, like it did, it's obvious from looking at the stuff you've seen that we've been shown of the dark side compared to this side. In other words, the dark side isn't dark, but it's dark in the fact we don't see it all the time. And so the amount of asteroid hits on this side compared to the other side, there's a vast difference because one side, when it left Tiamat going through the field of debris, it got a lot of impacts. And it's fascinating to look at the surface of the moon because if you look at the impacts, large or small, they're the same depth. I mean, you have a crater on this side of the moon that evacuated material that goes across the entire surface we see, and yet it's the same depth as something that's tiny. Obviously, the whole surface of the moon is on some kind of shock control system that can take a massive impact and not break up because and it doesn't make a bigger hole and it rings for hours when they dropped the various materials on the moon bigger and bigger payloads on the moon. They find that it rings for hours, and even the last one they did, it rang for days. So the moon actually, when they drilled in to put the first flag up, they the bit took a while once it got past the dust and the debris of all that's been piled up on there. That was a very hard metallic-like substance that they were trying to drill into. It took them quite a while to be able to drill and get the flag up. So that was kind of humorous to me. But yeah, the moon is mostly hollow, uh, as in the surface. It's not a solid chunk. There's a lot of technology and things and infrastructure within the moon, and of course the dry systems to move it. But most of those dry systems, other than the ones that are keeping it in orbit in the tidal lock, are not active anymore, including what is called the moon room, which is the part of the Soul Trap. That's also shut down. Back to you, James.
Yeah, there was like three computers and like one of them is barely working. So, although
Yeah,
if that was off too, I think we would all just immediately get all our memories back.
yeah, that's all very ancient, and
Uh,
I mean,
so,
they'll not last forever. But the question is, the people that build it, who knows how to run it?
so next question. So we have Valiant Thor. He says the moon base is called Clarion. And then we have Heliana Star Traveler. She says the moon is called Operation Space Command. And then, of course, we hear about Lunar Operations Command, right? So, what do you think? Is it and or is it maybe all above? What
Did
what are
you
your
say Clarion?
Clarion? Yes, according to Valiant Thor.
Clarion is so our star system, our sun, with its total of 11 kind of sort of mostly for the most part you can call them planets, I guess. And then we have a brown dwarf that orbits at a 29,720 year orbit from an 80, I think it's 84 or 86 degree negative intersection from below the ecliptic of our system. And so that comes through. It just left in, I think, finally in 2016, came in, uh, maybe it came in 2016. I'm trying to remember. I think it came in 2014 and left 2016, 2019 area. So it won't be back for tens of thousands of years. And that is the Nemesis uh, brown dwarf with the three outer inhabited planets. The primary two are Helion on Argoda, and then, of course, what they call where the Anunnaki come from, their homeworld. So it has various names. I'll let people.
Are you referring to Nibiru? Planet
Nebular,
Earth?
yeah, Nibiru, Nebular. So that
Yeah.
star system. Then you have a third star system, which is a blue dwarf that comes in at exactly the opposite angle from above the ecliptic below. It has a massive multi-million year orbit. It comes very rarely through our system. But that star is called Clarion, and it has one planet that is a large size of Jupiter, but a rocky planet, which they can't figure out why is a rocky planet that big. But that planet is called Maitreya, and there's a base on Maitreya. So the Clarion base is a third rare trinary star system.
Oh, wow. So that's the Maitreya, those type of negative regressive grays.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay, great. Thank you for sharing all that. Let's go back to our featured presentation here. So we have Area 51. We've already discussed a little bit about that, unless you want to add some more.
No, I'm good.
Okay, so there are 120 to 150-year-old Nazis living down there already. So
Yeah.
Project Paperclip, they have re-aging tech. So we're basically dependent on them to releasing this technology, right? But maybe they'll have a change of heart. So we also have the
I,
Montauk base.
yeah. And I think you know the most about that. You know, you have a lot of personal experience with that.
The Montauk facility was a pocket reality that was frozen in time sometime around spring of 72, and it stayed like that for decades. And there was uh, they were sending children back through time to collect technology, but also to change timelines. So we're not on the original organic timeline. I've discussed this on my show where we the South actually won the Civil War. Where one that wasn't really won. It's more of a stalemate. So both of them, we had the Confederacy in the North, and in that timeline, the technology was equivalent to the 1960s right now, but we still had precious metals backed currency, which is dictated in our Constitution. So everybody had money, but the technology was slower. And then also, it was President Jefferson Davis freed all the slaves. So the Confederacy, yeah, ended slavery too right after the war. But so yeah, you don't remember that, right? But I mean, we can go on and on. I mean, even like what was it, Pax Romana? So like ancient Rome, that timeline existed for thousands of years, but that got changed because they went back in time to teach the Germanic tribes guerrilla warfare. So they were able to defeat the Roman Empire or stop the spread. So anyway,
Plus, they're creating super soldiers there that are artificially enhanced. So then, um, if you could correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I believe that's correct.
well, so Montauk can go in even into the future and pull up people that they want for their timeline. So some of the people there haven't even been born yet. That's and honestly, I think something like I mean, there should be rules put down on, but there's another organization called Time Corps, which is responsible for regulating the timelines. But it seems like Time Corps does what's best for Time Corps. So as long as it doesn't interfere, they don't mind. It seems like. But maybe in the future we can set up was what was it, John Titor? He said they set up something called temporal recon, and John Titor, by the way, is alive right now living in Florida. So if you're watching this, say hello. But anyway, okay.
So then we go back to Dulce, primary connection to lunar underground and Mars colonies, hybrid human ET jump gates system. Um, it is still somewhat being utilized by the Draco. It's still in battle to some degree. The white hat infiltration is now at the high level, so the battle for that is ongoing. Then we go to Cheyenne Mountain, and I don't know if they'll be up to date on this one. It usually is not. It's the Lunar Operations Command and Mars Base. It commands all of that, as well as the Earth now. It's military. It has a Stargate, like you saw in the series Stargate, and it has a developed portal system as well. It is completely white hat controlled. Um, and secret space program, Solar Warden, Radiant Guardian, Radiant Glory, all of that now completely under white hat control. And because that ties to DIA, that's why I was saying for the 90+% DIA is completely in the white hats too. Then we go to European jump gates. We have CERN, of course, which I talked about that earlier, infra-dimensional portals. It is a AI controlled particle accelerator for jump gate stabilization. That's why they built it. And the white hats have repurposed it completely to stabilize the timeline we're in. So it is most um, almost all of it controlled by the white hats. It's not much contested anymore. The parts that were contested have been dismantled. So why would they be contested? Because they took the parts away, literally from that area and disseminated them way far away. Let's put it that way. So the underground systems for CERN that go to the Vatican and other places still remains somewhat active. That's why Vatican is listed next.
Well, so
Because
I want to mention something. So Jimmy Payne said he did a time jump into the future, and they went to CERN to see what was going on. They said everybody was dead, so there was blood everywhere. So something, I think a portal might open up. So, but anyway, timelines can change, so we can all wish the most positivity and best for everybody. So
yeah, yes,
next one, Vatican.
yeah, and then of course, the timeline, the future we have is in flux like crazy right now. There's so many. Trump is moving so fast, doing so many things, as well as various other groups. Putin too. The alliance is moving so fast, doing so many things against the deep state, so many places in the world, all at the same time. That's creating massive flux of the future. So I have no idea how they're tracking it, other than the AI could possibly keep up with that. So this includes CERN massively as well as the Vatican. So the Vatican, of course, has ancient human off-world facilities and massive tunnel network systems connecting to a lot of places, interplanetary travel as well as off-world refuges. So it is like I said, for the most part, until you get to the Albania portion of the Vatican tunnel system, now under white hat control. And then we go to the Gobi Desert, which is the Uyghur civilization had built a lot of underground facilities and tunnels, and that's the Gobi Desert. And they still have in winds that blow up sarcophagus and gold coins and all kinds of things from parts of buildings. So the underground facility, of course, is still fine. It's an ancient portal structure that has been repurposed by modern breakaway civilizations, primarily in this case, that would be the Chinese factions. So that would be their secret space programs. And that's all of their deep space secret space programs. So that would mean that the Black Hand forces, it would mean the Triad, it would mean everything. So that's a large list. I'll go into that at another time. Then we have Himalayas, Tibet. It is an ancient inner world, inner Earth system, extremely advanced, natural energy based. In other words, free energy naturally generated from the quantum, from the Planck distance, what is called the Cassini effect, and then certain benevolent off-world inner Earth civilizations, Shambhala, Agartha, and other ones as well. And it is completely unable to be accessed ever by the deep state. They have never able to ever access that at all. Then we go into Australia. We talked about Pine Gap that goes to the moon, Mars, and additionally, it is an AI controlled energy jump gate, mainly going to the Mars Earth transit hub. So the deep state eyes intelligence are still trying to use it. It's being fought out right now. It's partially white hat control right now. But the white hat AI grids system is, and that's part of what's called the Golden Dome, are dismantling the deep state side. They're literally taking it apart. It's kind of humorous. Africa jump gates, we have Libya and the massive underground system that goes from Libya and the lower two-thirds of Africa, and especially South Africa, which is owned by the Draco. They were given dominion over that for a very, very long time ago. So they've had that and especially the Soto area, that is a massive port system there. So those civilizations um, are going to fight back seriously. It's one of their last connections other than Israel and Ukraine, which is mostly gone now. So they are fighting to hold on to that because they've lost most of Antarctica, as I've said, and we'll go into that next. But so the Libya That's mostly Nightmare Alley, like in Dulce, where they do the chimeras. But South Africa, they is their main human trafficking hub on Earth. It has always been. The amount of people are in the billions that have gone through that hub, and the amount of people there is still in that number. So it's a massive hub, and they need that for their food supply. They're not going to let that go easy. That's going to be probably the last embattled area. Then we go to Antarctica, which is New Schwabenland, the base 211 originally. I'll be working on that Decode very shortly, the Russian invasion of that first, and then the British, and then the U.S. I jumped, found out the Russians went there first, so trying to get that away from the NAZI. So the interstellar jump gates of off-world colonies from there are vast. There are many, 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 many bases that go even into the inner Earth. So it's a pre-flood era transit system. That would mean pre-flood, the younger Dryas, not all of the floods, not the one that broke the Earth apart flood, and not the one before that one too. So we had a series of floods. So the breakaway civilization elites use it, rogue factions, and benevolent. So there are a few rogue factions, but almost nothing anymore. It is highly contested, but the White Hats are actively, seriously, this is probably one of their most active areas. They are getting that completely done and completely cleaned out. So that is almost completely done now with the help of the Inner Earth group.
Thank you. All right, so let's go to the next one here. So we have underwater jump gates.
Yeah, so
Sea
underwater,
gates.
yeah, off the Bay of California, and I've shown that in the Bay of California, the what I call the coat hanger base. It looks like a coat hanger on the top. They made it look like the shape of a coat hanger. It's a Lemurian Atlantean off-world base. That's who built it originally. Uh, and it's such a humor, I guess. Maybe I don't know if they had coat hangers back then. Maybe not. So it's a Mer people also. That's actually the ancient spelling of Mer. They put an E now for the instead of MUR, it's MER nowadays. But back then it was Mer, which is an ocean aquatic species. It's one of the I'll give people the one of the five species. In other words, you'll have three, the Mer people, for that gate in Greenland, for that facility in Greenland. Sorry, it's still operational, and it is a really great place. I mean, a lot of nice people go through there. A lot of nice people there. So there we go.
Yeah, Gene, can you comment about the area of California that's going to break off into the sea? They say there's like a ledge there where it's not actually, yeah, the water goes on, the ocean goes deep underneath California.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on that? Is that true?
Well, not on our timeline, but you have the San Andreas, the Bay of California, and that tip of going down, where you have land on each side of that. You have Mexico on one side, and then you have the peninsula going down. That is actually on the Pacific crustal plate and not the American continental plate. So there are different continental plates that are slowly pulling apart. A few, it's about 2 inches a year. That's fast. Geologically speaking, that's Mach speed. So it's pulling apart, and it's pulling all that crack goes all the way up and right out between underneath the Golden Gate. It literally goes right out. So the gap that the Golden Gate is spanning, the part that is on the San Francisco side is on the Pacific plate. The part that's on the Oakland side is on the American plate, and those are separating. And so, in the distant future, yes, but it is a constant, slow movement for the most part that is relatively peaceful. Even the San Francisco earthquake, as earthquakes go, when you're talking catastrophic separation of continental plates, that's gentle. I know it doesn't sound for humans that that would be gentle, but we're talking gentle because the Earth has seen in that catastrophic situation where the plates went apart to pretty close to where they are today. You're talking magnitudes we don't even have a number for. You're
Hmm.
talking way above 15, magnitude 15. I mean, you're talking continental plate movement. So you're talking earthquakes that are way beyond anything we could even have ever understood that
Hmm. Do you
happened.
think the great earthquake in San Francisco was that another one of these resets that we've had? Like it was intentional? What do you
Say again?
the great earthquake, I don't know, it's in 1905, I'm trying to guess.
Yeah,
So that whole area, there's a photo in the 1870s showing how developed it is, but there's like hardly anyone in it. It's like the city existed when the colonists arrived, and it was like a Tartarian outpost. What's your thoughts on that?
yeah. It used to be part of Tartaria, and not only that, but you also had a civilization across the Americas that was mostly up in Canada. I think one of the persons in your chat would probably know what I'm referring to. But this civilization built pyramids like Teotihuacan, which was completely refurbished. It did not look like it does today. It was pretty much just a mound of busted up rock. You have, it's called, you've kind of off as the mound builders, which those mounds were pyramids like Teotihuacan, and they were bigger people. So some were merged with the Tartarians that came over here, and you had a series of pyramids all over the place. And the mound builders stretched primarily originally from Okanagan area, like Karen Luke McDonald, Lucy McDonald is saying there, in the Okanagan area. It went all the way down into the San Francisco area, down into Mexico, in Teotihuacan, and all of that. So, a very, very ancient civilization. And I'm not talking about Homo carpensis group either, or Anunnakis either. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about a very peaceful, loving, and kind and compassionate group of very an empire, but it was not a conquering empire. It was an empire that people joined because it was so wonderful in trade and economics and sharing of technologies and food and everything else. So with the
Were
inner
they were
yes,
they a group of giants or giants and us little people mixed together?
all of the above in the Wyoming Montana area, the people there that were part of that civilization were about 2 feet tall. They were small there. I mean, it was composed of many, many different groups because everybody loved each other and was kind of compassionate. And they didn't have all this warfare and all this stuff we do today. They didn't believe in that. They
Well, I,
respected life of
yeah.
all beings.
Okay, so I went on to the Hokia Mounds, and for those of you who don't know, it's in just outside of St. Louis. So my friend, she is a natural seer, so she was communicating with. She went back in time, and she would. So I talked to one of the natives there, and what they said, what they described, is that there was quadrants around this mound, and the mound itself was like an airport facility. You know, it's secured. So and it's for transit for ships to land. But they also had a Stargate portal, and that portal was with the Giants area. But then they had the native people, and then other groups of humanoids were all around this mound. So they knew that the Vatican, they sent the Jesuits in, right, to try. The Jesuits were mainly looking for advanced technology, but also to suppress the native population. So a lot of those groups left, or they went underground. Like there's a Mayan breakaway civilization that's connected to, that was like the fountain of youth kind of thing. Ponce de Leon. That's what they were the Masons and the Vatican, where the Jesuits were looking for advanced technology. Anyway, okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Ponce de Leon was primarily looking for the Fountain of Youth. He was looking kind of mostly on 2D, 3D Earth. You're not going to find it. It's on the halfway up 4D. So it's in the area he was looking. He went right through the area. You're not going to see it. You're not at the right ascension level to see it. you're not going to be able to go there. So you are a very vicious individual, and it's positive 4D is where it is at the upper levels of 4D, and then it goes all the way up to mid 5D. So that whole thing is, a large civilization there. So uh, you're not going to be able to get there, just like that facility that's we mentioned that the white hat that the black hats could never touch because they just don't resonate with it. The same thing goes with this facility in Greenland that goes through new territories, as well as the Okanagan area. Yes, Lewis Karen, it goes through that area to Haynes Junction and then up to McKinley. That has a like the Lemurian crystalline structures do. They have a frequency that would destroy somebody that is in a deep state neocon mode of behavior, of thinking and resonance. If you're in human trafficking mode, you will die. You will be like in the Bible where they came through the fire furnace. In other words, a stargate that would look like flames instead of water in this case, and they were fried. Then they even cryogenically froze some people and sent them through. They still came back fried. So you're not going to go through that if you're resonating in extreme service to self in AI, allegiance and dark stuff. It's not going to happen. If you have a dark field resonance, you're not going through.
Yeah, there was a portal in the Heather material. There was they were discussing about sending a super soldier asset through the portal to investigate what's on this other higher frequency. I don't know. It's like the seventh dimension or something. So as soon as they said that, the portal opened up and a reptilian came out, grabbed one of the scientists, brought him back through the portal, and then they threw him back in with they immediately caught on fire. They said no, telepathic no. So yeah, there's plenty of places out there. I think us humans need to learn to get along with each other. We need to fix our own problems before we start stepping on other beings, other races. But anyway, I think that's that nowadays that's such a cliche in the disclosure community. I think we all should accept that as self acknowledged information. But anyway, so thank you, Gene. I appreciate it. I was hoping I could get outside so for a little bit of left of the daylight because well, Gene, I'm going to go ahead and leave it there. Gene, one last message. Do you have any other message you'd like to share?
Just God bless and Godspeed to everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you for having me back, James. It's been honored to be back on your platform. It's been a long time. Thank you.
Very good. Yes. And thank you, Gene. Thank you, audience members, for some of your great questions. We had a very fascinating conversation here in the chat today. And thank you for our YouTube listener audience coming over here to Rumble. So make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll all see you later. Goodbye, everybody. We'll see you later.